Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight, an extended hemp news segment. Mr. Tim Pate's back on guitar. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm fine, Paul. How are you?
Very well, very well. Thanks for watching this midsummer evening. It is the 15th of July, 2011, and we're at show 592. We'll have a few film clips, be taking your phone calls at 503-288-4448 in just a few moments. After Tim plays us some music, I read you some news, and we bring on the infamous Dancing Cannabis Leaves.
I feel the force.
We have a lot of interesting news that's developed over the past few weeks. Foremost among those is just this week out of Washington, D.C. The United States Drug Enforcement Administration last Friday formally denied a 9-year-old petition calling on the agency to initiate hearings to reassess the present classification of marijuana as a Schedule I controlled substance without any accepted medical use and treatment. A coalition of public interest organizations filed a comprehensive rescheduling petition with the DEA on October 9, 2002. This past May, the coalition filed suit in the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia to compel the Obama administration to respond to their petition to reclassify marijuana under federal law. Drug Enforcement Administration Administrator Michelle Lionheart posted a letter denying the petition in the July 8, 2011 edition of the Federal Register. Lionheart stated that cannabis has, quote, a high potential for abuse, no currently accepted medicinal use in treatment in the United States, and lacks accepted safety for use under medical supervision, end quote. DEA Administrator and apparatchik said also, quote, there are no adequate and well-controlled studies proving marijuana's efficacy. The drug is not accepted by qualified experts. At this time, the known risks of marijuana use have not been shown to outweigh by specific benefits in well-controlled clinical trials that scientifically evaluate safety and efficacy, end quote. The DEA is predictably maintaining its decades-old flat earth position in regards to the otherwise well-acknowledged therapeutic properties of cannabis. It's a shame to see an administration that pledged to be guided by scientific integrity engage in such blatant politicalization. Political coalition advocates will be appealing the decision in federal court. A similar rescheduling petition with the DEA was filed in 1972, but was not granted a federal hearing on the issue until 1986. In 1988, DEA Administrative Law Judge Francis Young ruled that marijuana did not meet the legal criteria of a Schedule I prohibited drug and should be reclassified. Then Drug Enforcement Administration Administrator John Lawn rejected Young's determination, a decision of the D.C. Court of Appeals eventually affirmed in 1994. A subsequent petition was filed in 1995 but was rejected by the DEA in 2001. So now an appeal will take place to appeal the last week's rejection of rescheduling marijuana to by the DEA administrator. Our next story is out of Helena, Montana. A district judge on Thursday of last week issued a temporary injunction barring the enforcement of several new restrictive provisions in Montana's medical marijuana laws. In May, Democratic Governor Brian Schweitzer allowed Senate Bill 423 to become law without his signature. The new law, which legislators enacted with the intent of significantly reducing the existing number of state-authorized patients, took effect on July 1st. However, several of the more restrictive provisions in the law will not go into effect. Specifically, Helena District Judge James Rinnell enjoined the requirements that advising physicians be reported to the State Board of Examiners if they recommend cannabis to more than 25 patients per year. Other restrictions limited marijuana providers to distributing to a maximum of 3 patients, allowing for unauthorized and unannounced searches of providers and barring them from receiving anything of value for their product. Those were also struck down. This is a victory for all of Montanans, regardless of your position on marijuana policy. It means that no ideologue legislator should think twice before overturning the will of the people with unconstitutional and capricious new legislation. State medical marijuana advocates are moving forward with a referendum to allow voters to decide in 2012 whether any of the provisions of Senate Bill 423 in Montana should remain law. In June, the Montana Secretary of State's office approved the language of a proposed petition. Advocates have until September to gather the necessary number of signatures from registered voters. Doing so will block the law entirely from taking effect, pending a vote by the people in 2012. A fundraising concert, Marijuana Aid 2011, to help offset the legal and campaign costs will take place in Montana on July 23rd. More information about this event is available online at marijuanaaid.org. Our next story is also from Washington, D.C., and another evil news of the federal government working against medical marijuana. The United States Department of Justice issued a memorandum to U.S. attorneys last month revising the administration's position regarding the use of federal resources in states that have enacted laws allowing for the use of distribution of medical cannabis to authorized patients. It's the second such memo issued by the Obama administration. The Department of Justice memo seeks to clarify the Obama administration's stance after U.S. attorneys this spring sent letters to several state lawmakers threatening to prosecute medical marijuana providers or, in some cases, licensed state employees who license such providers, even in instances where such conduct was in strict compliance with state law. According to the latest memorandum, dated June 29th, and signed by Deputy Attorney General James Cole, the warnings issued in the previous U.S. attorneys' letters are entirely consistent with Department of Justice policy. The memo states, quote, it's likely not an efficient use of federal resources to focus enforcement efforts on individuals with cancer or other serious illnesses who use marijuana as part of a recommended treatment regimen consistent with applicable state laws. By contrast, the Department of Justice notes that persons who are in the business of cultivating, selling, or distributing marijuana, and those who knowingly facilitate such activities are in violation of the Federal Controlled Substances Act, regardless of state law. To date, 3 states, Colorado, New Mexico, and Maine, have allowed for the operation of state-licensed medical marijuana producers and providers. 5 additional states, Arizona, Delaware, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Vermont, as well as the District of Columbia, have similar laws but have either suspended or not yet implemented their medical marijuana distribution programs. Governors Jan Brewer, Republican of Arizona, Chris Christie, a Republican of New Jersey, Lincoln Chafee, an independent of Rhode Island, each of whom had elected to halt their state's medical marijuana dispensary programs in recent months, have yet to issue public statements in response to the Department of Justice memo. As a candidate, President Obama had pledged that he would not be using the Justice Department resources to try to circumvent state laws on medical marijuana. The full text of this new Department of Justice memorandum, the Cole Memorandum, is available online at freedomisgreen.com. That's freedomisgreen.com. Next story is out of Maine. Maine's Republican Governor Paul LePage signed legislation, LD 1296, into law on Friday, implementing new privacy protections for qualified medical cannabis patients. The measure eliminates a recently enacted legislative mandate requiring medical marijuana patients to be registered with the state in order to receive legal protection under state law. And it eliminates statutory language requiring physicians to disclose a patient's specific medical condition with the Maine Department of Health and Human Services. Additionally, LD 1296 limits the ability of law enforcement to seize cannabis from lawful patients and mandates for the return of any seized property within 7 days. Only 2 states, California and Washington, do not require patients to be registered with the state to receive limited legal protections. The new law takes effect in October. In March, Safe Alternatives, the first state-regulated medical marijuana dispensary on the East Coast, began operations in Maine. Since then, 2 additional dispensaries have opened their doors. Maine expects to have 8 licensed dispensaries up and running before the end of the year. The first text of this measure is available online at Maine's legislative website, mainelegislature.org. We have a couple of medical stories. Out of Spain, the combined administration of plant cannabinoids, THC and CBD, tetrahydrocannabinol and cannabidiol, provide neuroprotection in models of Huntington's disease, or HD, according to experimental data to be published in the Journal of Neuroscience Research. Huntington's disease is an inherited degenerative brain disorder characterized by motor abnormalities and dementia, produced by selective lesions in the cerebral cortex and in particular in the striatum. There are presently no known conventional therapies available to alleviate Huntington's disease or associated HD-associated degeneration. An international team of investigators from Spain, Italy, and the United Kingdom assessed whether THC and CBD-rich botanical extracts could delay the progress of the disease in laboratory animals. The authors reported, quote, "Our data demonstrate that a 1-to-1 combination of THC and CBD-enriched botanical extracts protects neurons against toxicity. By contrast, the administration of individual selective synthetic cannabinoid agonists did not produce similarly favorable outcomes." The investigators concluded, in our opinion, these data provide sufficient preclinical evidence to justify a clinical evaluation of 1-to-1 THC to CBD cannabis-based medicine as a neuroprotective agent capable of delaying disease progression in patients affected by Huntington's disease, a disorder that is currently poorly managed in the clinic, prompting an urgent need for clinical trials with agents showing positive results in preclinical studies, end quote. The full text of this study, Neuroprotective Effects of Phytocannabinoid-Based Medicines in Experimental Models of Huntington's Disease, will appear in the Journal of Neuroscience Research. Additional studies documenting the disease-modifying potential of cannabis is available online at normal.org. Our last story this evening is from New York. The administration of non-psychotropic cannabinoid CBD or cannabidiol induces selective apoptosis or cell death in hepatic stellate cells or SSC cells in the liver, according to preclinical findings reported in the journal Cell Death and Disease. The activation of these liver cirrhosis genes is considered to be a key cellular event underlining hepatic fibrosis or excessive tissue buildup, a condition that can result in liver failure. The authors reported in this study we found that CBD selectively kills activated HSC cells. We provide a molecular basis of action for CBD and identify CBD as a novel potential therapeutic agent for liver fibrosis. They concluded, quote, "These promising findings warrant future investigations evaluating the anti-fibrotic effect of CBD in vivo. A prospect of CBD as a new anti-fibrotic compound is rendered more appealing by the fact that CBD is a non-psychoactive, small, drug-like molecule already approved for clinical use in many countries," end quote. Liver fibrosis is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Previous studies have consistently reported that cannabinoids can selectively promote cell suicide in various malignant cell lines, including breast cancer, lung cancer, and glioma. The full text of this study, cannabidiol causes activated hepatic stellate cell death through a mechanism of endoplasmic reticulum stress-induced apoptosis, appears in Cell Death and Disease. That is the end of our hemp news segment this evening. How are you doing, Tim?
Well, I'm just listening to what you had to say there. I'm impressed with the fact that there are multiple studies throughout the world that continue to appear, and we report on this week by week by week. And Yet the DEA still denies that there's any clinical viability to medical marijuana in this country. I remain stunned. I just remain stunned.
Right.
I wish it weren't that
there's
way.
all this clinical data out there, and the federal government just continues to lie
I know.
and say
I know.
there's no medical utility and no evidence of it. It's kind of like, just a blatant hypocrisy.
Well, I remember-
It really illustrates the whole degenerative nature
Yes.
of our current federal government. Here, President Obama, as we read in the Hemp News segment, specifically said that they were going to base their findings on science and the scientific integrity of their findings, and yet the
Not the case.
pronouncements of the agency
case.
is pure malarkey.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's,
I once had the
outrageous.
privilege of reading the first administrative law judge's decisions back
Yeah,
in
Francis
'88
Young.
with all of the anecdotal evidence that was associated with it.
He said
And
marijuana's safer than potatoes.
oh my goodness! I mean, if you saw, I'm certain that they had a bigger pile of administrative information that they sent to them, and anecdotal evidence, and clinical studies, and
The
I
late
mean, it's
great-
just the pile keeps getting bigger. When will they pay attention? I hope it doesn't take too much longer. But
Well, I really
That's what
believe
this
that we're
fight's
going to
about.
see several states vote on complete legalization here in 2012. Of course, our initiative here in Oregon
Right.
is moving forward, and I'm very happy to announce a greatly enlarged petition count. We're up to 23,875
Excellent.
signatures.
Good.
It's about 4,000 signatures more than we had last week, and our petition drive is accelerating. We expect
Well, you'll get it.
to
Keep
make
that
the
rate.
ballot here. We've got more.
That's gonna happen.
We've got a full year at this point, but what we're really shooting for is to break the record for the earliest initiative ever to qualify in history.
Well.
The earliest petition to qualified in November of 1985 for a vote in November of 1986. We want a little bit less than a year. It was turned in on November 11th, November 1st, excuse me, November 1st.
Right.
So as long as we can get more, our signatures in before that and qualify, then we would set a new world record for the earliest initiative
Oregon
to ever
record,
qualify on
which is,
any subject.
It's about time.
Yeah.
It really is. It's about time.
And then we'll see California, Washington, and Colorado join the fray for full legalization in 2012. It's going to cause a huge national debate. So,
as
we'll
it should.
Yeah.
As it should. I mean, that's what this show's about, the debate.
Exactly. This show was started to support our Cannabis Tax Act petition.
Which year?
1996. The show will be its 15th anniversary coming up in October of 1996. We should be up to show 600 by then. And
There you go. Yeah. Well, for 592, it won't be long before
no,
we're there.
it won't.
It won't be. That's just the way it is. Speaking of anniversaries, last weekend was the 42nd anniversary of the Oregon Country Fair.
I see.
And
Did you go to that?
No, I was on staff there 14 years, but I did not go to that last week. Last week, I think I slept pretty much the whole weekend. I was that tired, but I think I've got also a cane that's, I believe, that old as well. But back in 1988, there was an evening in the sauna, and there was a whole bunch of people, and there's memories of foggy memories of things that happened that night, and I know I wrote a song about it, and so every few years I want to break that one out. And so anyway, this one's about the Oregon Country Fair. Well, I know a girl, she knows me. She can dance as sweet as can be. In the moonlight, in the raw. Well, at least I think that's what I saw that night. Oh, that night at the country fair. Right. I know you saw, 'cause you were there too. In fact, I think you all were nude. Oh, not a stitch in the whole darn crowd. Nobody violent, nobody loud. That night, oh, that night at the country fair. Well, I bet the whole world wished it were there. Yeah, that night at the country fair. Nobody violent, nobody down. Nobody down, nobody out. That night, oh, that night at the country fair. Well, I know a girl, she knows me. She can dance as sweet as can be. In the moonlight, in the raw. Well, at least I think that's what I saw. That night, oh, that night at the country fair. Oh, that night, oh, that night, oh, that night, that night, oh, that night, oh, that night, oh, that night, that night at the country fair. Thank you, folks.
Nice song there. I haven't been to the country fair in, gee, it must be about 16, 17 years. One of these days. But we are taking your phone calls this evening. If you have a question about ending adult marijuana prohibition, restoring industrial hemp, or helping medical marijuana patients, give us a call at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. And we'll be taking your phone call right up to the top of the hour. And we have a caller standing by. Hey, Tim. Hey, welcome. We're ready for your call. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello, hi. It seems to me that the U.S. is exercising some coercion over the Netherlands as far as their restricting tourists from coffee shops.
There's good news this past week in that the courts in the Netherlands threw out the attempts by the new conservative Dutch government to restrict tourist access to the coffee shops. And so the municipalities that promote them, and in the Netherlands there are about 7 municipality-owned coffee shops specifically open so kids have access to marijuana and don't try other hard drugs. In addition to the coffee shop scene in Amsterdam and Rotterdam and in some of the border towns. Some of the border towns, like Arnhem and others, have closed some of the coffee shops, but they're thriving still in Amsterdam and Rotterdam and some of the municipally owned ones that are run in the fringes near Germany.
But they have closed quite a few of them in Amsterdam. They don't have as many as they did when I was there. There's a lot less now.
They regulate them a little bit more carefully now.
I was just kind of curious about that issue because I don't think the Netherlands has been taking any IMF money or anything like that, you know.
No. No, it was a new conservative government that was voted in a couple of years ago. They'd been working to establish this. They had established, they were going to establish restrictions for everywhere outside of Amsterdam effective the end of this year, and then in Amsterdam the end of 2012, but now those restrictions have been thrown out by the Dutch courts. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot.
Sure. I mean, Amsterdam's been a beacon of freedom for several centuries, so
it's definitely a merchant zone.
Yeah. If you have a question for us tonight, give us a call at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448.
And I really do recommend, if anybody ever had the chance to travel to Europe one time, Amsterdam would be a good place to go to. It just simply is. It was so much fun. And I do recommend
You played the High Times Cannabis Cup.
I
How
got
often have you been to that?
I've just the one time.
Just one
but
time. And that was
I was
what
there for
year?
10 days, and I can't even remember what year it was. It was the same
Wasn't
year
too
that.
many years ago.
No, it wasn't. The Cottonmouth Kings played, and Jefferson Starship played.
2005, 6,
And then
7.
and then I got to play the induction into the Counterculture Hall of Fame for the Rainbow Family. And they were just here recently, here just 2 weeks ago.
They
They
had a
were
big
in our neighborhood
festival
up here in
up in
Washington State.
Washington,
And so, yeah, it was a fun time. I enjoyed
Well, I've
Amsterdam.
heard the
a lot of
Rainbow
parties and stuff.
Family actually was founded at the Vortex Festival in McIver Park over in Clackamas County.
Right.
Back, I think it was like 1970 or something.
That's
what
been
they say anyway.
It's been a while.
We have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Thank you. Say, I have lost my only supplier of cuttings and starts,
Uh-huh.
and I don't have anything right now because bugs took over what I had, and so now I have nothing. And I was wondering if you had any information that you could give me on where I could get some starts or some cuttings.
Sure. Give us a call. You're here in the Portland area and you hold an OMMP card, I take it.
Yes, sir. Both questions.
Yeah, so give us a call at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. We'll be happy to help you.
Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
And thank you. Bye-bye.
Common problem that's only going to increase.
Yeah. Well, there's genetics out there, and so we share them with the community. Then,
Right. If you ever lose yours, it could come back to you that
that's
way.
right. I've had that happen more
exactly.
than once. So if you have a question for us tonight, give us a call at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. We are going to be live here for about another 30 minutes or so. So the one exciting thing we have is our new petition count. We're up to 23,875 voter signatures turned in as of yesterday, July 14th, and that number continues to climb. We need 87,236 valid registered Oregon voter signatures by July of next year, July 6th of 2012, to qualify for the ballot. And we aim to turn in about 135 to 140,000 signatures to ensure that we qualify. Our initiative will legalize the sale of marijuana. It will allow anyone to grow their own marijuana without a license. It will license farmers to grow and sell marijuana through state licensed stores. It will allow the unregulated production of industrial hemp, and will also allow the unregulated sale of starts and seeds of all strains of cannabis. So we urge you to support the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act of 2012 petition drive. You can find out more there at cannabistaxact.org. We have a caller. Welcome to the show, caller. Hello.
Hi, Paul.
There you
Hey,
are.
how you doing?
Doing well. How are you? This is Chris from your Belgian staff.
Howdy. I'm doing very well.
Excellent. So, hey, we're getting a lot of calls in the Belgian call center. People asking about what we think, what our take is on the Seattle City Council passing these regulations,
For the medical marijuana
garden
dispensaries in the city of
yeah.
Seattle.
Hmm?
Yeah, that's actually exciting. I mean, it certainly
Really
bodes
exciting.
well,
I was
I
there
think.
observing it.
Say that again?
I was actually at the city council meeting observing it. It was exciting, and they were so proactive. It just went right through.
Well, the city attorney there in Seattle is also a proponent of the new initiative that they're starting to gather signatures on over the next few weeks, the New Approaches for Washington petition, which Rick Steves, the PBS travel video producer and television show producer, and people at the American Civil Liberties of Washington's Foundation, and several other people have joined together to come up with a new bill that would regulate cannabis like alcohol through Washington State's liquor store system. And so they're gathering signatures to turn into the Secretary of State to have a bill referred to the legislature next January. They have until December 30th to gather signatures in Washington. And then they're going to have the legislature review that. Then the Washington legislature can choose to pass. One, they can just put the initiative that was circulated on the ballot, or it can put another initiative and the one that was circulated on the ballot and give Washington voters two choices of ways to regulate, whichever one got the majority and more signatures would go into effect. So there's also the Sensible Washington campaign, and Don Skacke, who's been here on our show and will be back, has announced that they fell short in their petition drive, but they too, along with Doug Hyatt and other folks up in Sensible Washington, are planning on launching another petition drive in Washington. So there's two different initiative drives that might be going on there in Washington State.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more about that or really get involved, a good place for you to start would be coming to the Seattle Hemp Fest, which is the 19th, 20th, and 21st of August. It's always the third weekend in August. It will be again this year on Myrtle Edwards Park, down on the waterfront at the end of Pier 71. And there's going to be a huge crowd, but also a tremendous number of big name acts that are coming out this year to support us.
Who are those big name acts this year?
Well, I got to say,
what are the ones you can
one of the
announce now?
things that I know that Alan White from Yes, the drummer from Yes, will be
He's
back
played
with us.
before,
He's
yeah.
played before. He's been there multiple times. I was at the core staff meeting on Tuesday evening, and it was announced that Phil Lesh was interested in coming to play. And Phil Lesh, those of you who don't know, is the bass player for the Grateful Dead, and Phil Lesh and friends on tour for many years now, since Jerry's death in '95. And so there are...
That's big.
That's,
Phil Lesh,
to me, that
is
is actually the biggest, one of the biggest names we could have. I know that Rick Steves is coming back, and he's not only a dynamic individual, but a great speaker and somebody who's really very
now
much a
the
supporter.
sponsor of the New Approaches for Washington initiative.
Exactly.
Chris, are you still there?
No,
Oh,
I think we lost Chris. But yeah, well, he switched the topic to Washington. I felt like it was time to speak a little bit about that. Yeah, and
I used to be Washington State Normal Coordinator for the state back in 1982, 3, and 4. And then in '84, I moved here to Oregon. So I have a little history in Washington and Evergreen State College.
I was a preacher in the state of Washington in 1981 and 2. So yeah, we were at odds back then.
I moved to Washington in '81.
So there you go.
I
We
was
were
in
on the
Olympia,
opposite sides of the
Evergreen
fence.
State College
I
there.
changed, I did, but these things happen. But as you know, it's going to be a huge crowd in Seattle. And I also know the Cottonmouth Kings have consented to come this year. We have, oh wow, I could just keep going, but I'll just leave it at that. There's a whole bunch of folks. I've been asked to play. I'll be opening main stage each day. I'll also be playing the Hymposium, and they've asked me to speak as well. So, and besides that, I have a wonderful guitar that I'll be giving away from main stage. And
you're gonna do that again.
This is the 14th guitar I've been given, so I'm really I'm enjoying being Santa Claus in front of all those people.
So to find out more about the Seattle Hemp Fest, you can go to hempfest.org. That's HEMPFEST.org. And then here in Portland, we have our own Hemp Stock Festival coming up on September 10th and 11th. You can find out about the Portland Hemp Stock Festival, which will take place at Kelly Point Park on Saturday and Sunday, September 10th and 11th. Go to hempstock.org, HEMPSTALK.org. Or you can go to our web portal at hemp.org, just like it says right there. We have a film clip we're going to roll right now, and then we'll be back in just a moment, take more phone calls, and answer more questions about ending adult marijuana prohibition, restoring industrial hemp, and helping medical marijuana patients. So stay tuned.
Obesity, particularly abdominal obesity and the associated cardiometabolic complications, are critical areas of investigation. The endocannabinoid system helps to regulate the central control of energy balance and peripheral metabolic processes, both of which may contribute to cardiometabolic risk factors. The endocannabinoid system, or ECS, influences multiple physiologic processes. This intricate system modulates energy intake, as well as nutrient transport, metabolism, and storage. The ECS regulates these processes through endogenous ligands, such as anandamide and 2-arachidonyl glycerol, and the CB1 receptor. CB1 receptors are located in the brain, digestive tract, muscle, and adipose tissue. Integration of these central and peripheral ECS components is achieved through neuronal and hormonal signaling. Within the brain, CB1 receptors are among the most abundant G-protein coupled receptors. However, in contrast to classical signaling, where information travels from pre to postsynaptic neurons, the ECS uses retrograde signaling. The information travels from post to presynaptic neuron. Let's take a closer look at this mechanism using a glutamatergic neuron model. When an action potential reaches the axon terminal, membrane depolarization triggers the release of glutamate. Glutamate binds to postsynaptic glutamate receptors, inducing calcium channels to open. During periods of intense neural activity, calcium accumulates in the postsynaptic neuron. This calcium buildup causes the synthesis and release of endocannabinoids from membrane lipids. Diffusing across the synaptic cleft, the endocannabinoids bind to the CB1 receptor, activating the G proteins. Activation influences ion flow. The result, suppression of presynaptic neurotransmitter release. Endocannabinoids are subsequently taken back into the cell and enzymatically degraded. In addition to acting as neural messengers, endocannabinoids mediate paracrine and autocrine signaling in adipocytes, hepatocytes, and other cells. Endocannabinoid system activity in the central nervous system regulates food intake. For example, ECS stimulation by hunger and fasting signals stimulates appetite and increases the palatability of food. Endocannabinoids slow gastric emptying and GI transit and appear to stimulate secretion of ghrelin, a neuropeptide that increases appetite and food intake. After eating, cholecystokinin in the duodenum triggers satiety signals. Subsequently, ECS activity is decreased through suppression of CB1 expression. An increase in the adiposity hormone leptin decreases endocannabinoid levels in the hypothalamus and decreases food intake. ECS regulation of peripheral metabolism influences energy balance. Stimulation of the ECS increases food intake and adiposity. Conversely, blocking CB1 receptors reduces food intake and adiposity. In the liver, ECS stimulation can lead to lipogenesis through the activation of hepatic lipogenic enzymes and increased fatty acid synthesis. Chronic stimulation of the ECS is associated with dyslipidemia. Activation of CB1 receptors increases expression of SREBP1C, a lipogenic transcription factor, and increases fatty acid synthesis. SREBP1C increases production of lipogenic enzymes, ACC1, and fatty acid synthase. Increased fatty acid synthesis can lead to production of large triglyceride-rich VLDL. Large triglyceride-rich VLDL sets the stage for the atherogenic lipid profile of small, dense LDL, decreased levels of atheroprotective HDL, and overall increases in cholesterol and triglyceride levels. Adiponectin, another hormone secreted by adipocytes, regulates lipid and glucose metabolism. Adiponectin is believed to regulate fatty acid oxidation in muscle and liver, thus improving insulin sensitivity. CB1 receptor stimulation in adipocytes reduces adiponectin, while CB1 blockade increases adiponectin synthesis. Metabolic dysregulation leads to a constellation of symptoms including abdominal obesity, atherogenic dyslipidemia, hypertension, insulin resistance, prothrombotic state, and pro-inflammatory state. As basic and clinical research progresses, we will continue to increase our understanding of the central and peripheral endocannabinoid system and its role in the regulation of metabolic function.
tested on that, are we?
Yeah, get out your pens and papers, children. We're going to have a little test here. All right. We are taking your phone calls. That's obviously an academic video that
very deep.
I saw out there. I said, we got to show that on the show. So there you have it. We have a caller. Welcome to the show, caller. Oh, they gave up. If you have a question, now it's time to call at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. And we have a studio audience member here with a call. By the way, for you, those of you out there interested, you can come down here to our studio audience and sit in on the show and do that any Friday night, even though you don't want to do it the next two Friday nights because we're going to be out of the area for the next two Friday nights. I have a personal tribute to a fallen comrade to take place next weekend, and the following weekend we'll be with Willie Nelson on Friday night. So we're not going to make the show until August. So our next Cannabis Common Sense show comes up in August, and stay tuned for that. We have, as I said, studio audience member with a question. Go right ahead, studio audience member.
Can you explain the difference between the THC and the cannabinoids and their function?
Well, THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol, is one of several, about 40 unique cannabinoids that are unique to cannabis and that have analogs to natural neurotransmitters in the body. And so THC is one, CBD or cannabidiol is another. There's CBC, cannabichromine. THC has the psychoactive component. It's what causes the high associated with marijuana. It causes an increased appetite, the munchies. It's anti-emetic or an anti-nausea agent. And it's also great for a number of psychological conditions like bipolar condition and depression, manic depression. And it helps a good number of schizophrenics. About 1 out of 100 people have a tendency towards schizophrenia. About 1/10 of those, or about 1 out of 1,000 people, have a sensitivity to THC that could cause a psychotic reaction. But there are the CBD, or cannabidiol. It has the widest medical efficacy. It's good for pain, spasm, seizures, glaucoma, neurodegenerative diseases. It's an anti-cancer, anti-tumoral effective agent, lowers blood pressure. CBC, or cannabichromine, has analgesic properties, and CBN, or cannabinol, is an antibiotic properties. In fact, it's been shown to stop MRSA, or the multiple drug resistant bacteria out there. So that's just 4 of the cannabinoids in cannabis. So we have a caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello, yes, thank you for sharing all of this wonderful information about cannabis. I'm wondering if there's ever been a study to cite the influence or potential outcome of what more freedom of purchasing medical marijuana would be on the drug cartels, both state and national.
You know, it's very difficult, I think, to gauge because those drug cartels don't lend themselves to interviews and data collection. But
they won't tell us how much money they made, will they?
They don't like the fact that the price of marijuana has been driven down by medical marijuana.
That's right.
Well, I think that's a wonderful thing.
Me too.
Marijuana grows on trees. It's something that should be, sold by farmers at $5 to $20 an ounce. So I look forward to the day where our farmers can legally produce it, and I think that biofuels and food and fiber from cannabis will completely change our whole economic paradigm.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, we'll stop sending. The real key to marijuana prohibition is biofuel production, biodiesel and ethanol. Cannabis was prohibited based on a misinformation campaign by the petrochemical industry to stop competition from a low-cost biofuel to a capital-intensive petrochemical solution. So they came up with what we call the marijuana myth to prohibit cannabis. And so we're trying, of course, to completely end that through our initiative petition here in Oregon. You can find out more about it at cannabistaxact.org.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your call. If you're out there, we got about 10 minutes left to go, so give us a call at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. I have a little item I'd like to show you here on a brief exhibit. This is a package of 50% hemp, 50% straw from the early 90s, tree-free eco paper. I actually started this company and ran a company called Tree-Free Eco Paper from 1991 through 97. And according to the Great Book of Hemp on page 3, this was it and another company here in Portland I helped start. Were the first companies to import hemp products into North America. This is our most popular product, lined notebook filler paper that just flew off the shelf. So you can find out more about that at hemp.org. That's HEMP.org. We have a caller. I'd like to welcome the caller to the show. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Howdy.
Yes, I talked to you all a few weeks ago. I was the lady whose doctor found out she was on marijuana, and the doctor said I either had to quit smoking or lose my marijuana. I mean, my morphine. And so right now I'm in the process of changing doctors.
Great.
And my question, well, I have two basically. The first one is I requested my doctor to refuse to take out any reference to pot in my medical records. And does he have to do that if I request it?
Not necessarily. You really can't control what they put into your medical records short of legal action. And so you can, however, request a copy of your medical records. And,
yes, that was what I was planning to do.
Yeah, and then you can see what's in there and make a determination whether, you know, there's something that you'd like to see removed for any reason. Then you can make specific requests.
Okay, if I do that to get my medical records, is it okay for me to delete what I don't want in there, or would I be breaking a law?
No, it's fine for you to do whatever you want to do with your medical records, as long as you're not doing anything fraudulent.
What I needed to know.
And if you're taking items out of that, that's not fraudulent.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I'm sorry they put you through that mess and that they got you addicted to those opiates in the first place. But
yeah, me
glad
too.
to hear that you've decided to use a lot safer alternative, cannabis.
Yes, well, I've been trying to quit like he wanted me to, and I can go a day or two without it, and then I'm just in so much pain, and I get snappy and mean, and, you know.
Yeah, so you found a new physician, though, that can help you?
No, that was it. Those was my two questions.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for calling. You have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, I wish her well.
We have a film clip we're going to roll, and we'll be back in just a moment. Yeah, I wish her well as well. And so we'll be back just a moment after this film clip.
We have increased the amount of money for handling the problem of dangerous drugs sevenfold. It will be $600 million this year. More money will be needed in the future. I want to say, however, that despite our budget problems, to the extent money can help in meeting the problem of dangerous drugs, it will be available. This is one area where we cannot have budget cuts because we must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one in the United States, the problem of dangerous drugs.
It's a no-knock raid. Don't be afraid. We'll shoot your dogs in front of your kids. 'Cause we are the SWAT. We're here for your part and all the cash that you've got. We are adrenaline junkies taking orders from the top. KGB and the DEA, they'll make you disappear like in Guantanamo Bay. In the middle of the night, you'll have nothing to say. If we get the wrong address, it doesn't matter anyway. We'll still get our kicks, we'll still have our fun. Yeah, we are the SWAT, we are adrenaline junkies till the drugs are all gone. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. You do the time for your victimless crime. It's a no-knock raid. It's a no-knock raid. Don't be afraid. You shoot my dog. You shoot my fucking dog. Oh my God. This is a war, and this is your fate. We are the face of your new police state. We are the law, and we've got the guns. Statutory power, mandatory minimums. We are the SWAT, we're here for your part and all the cash that you've got. We are adrenaline junkies taking orders from the czar. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. You do the time for your victimless crime. And it's a no-knock raid. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. Flash bang on the ground, don't hear a sound. Could be you, could be the mayor of your town. And it's a no-knock raid. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid.
That is a horrific and powerful video that shows real drug raids. That last one just happened less than 2 months ago in Arizona. Man was shot 67 times. He'd been on a 12-hour shift at work. He got home 2 hours later. The police kicked in his door, shot him 67 times as he slept on his couch. The other showed Todd Blair. That was Jose Guerna down in Arizona, who was killed 2 months ago. The other fellow, Todd Blair, just opened his door and was shot in the chest. They were at the wrong house. Then there are over 8,000 no-knock SWAT raids here in the United States every year. And it's all about the drug war. And we want to end that drug war, and we have a solution. It's the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act petition. We urge you to support that and find out more by going to cannabistaxact.org. We now have 23,875 signatures as of yesterday and need 87,000 valid registered Oregon voter signatures to qualify by July of next year. So we hope you'll get involved in our petition drive. Go to our website, cannabistaxact.org. You can print the petition out, sign it yourself, and mail it into our office. at 2712 Northeast Sandy. That office is now staffed from 11 a.m. through 7:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. That's 2712 Northeast Sandy. You can pick up petitions there, find out more about the campaign. If you'd like us to mail you petitions so you can ask your friends and family and others to gather signatures, then go to our website, cannabistaxact.org, and fill out that petition, the volunteer form, to have those mailed to you. Also, if you are a loved one or looking for a doctor to help you find medical marijuana, we have doctors all across the United States for all those conditions and many more. So give us a call for more information here in the Portland area. That number is 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. If you're outside of Portland, you can call us at our toll-free number. That's 1-800-723-0188. We're going to go out with another song by Mr. Tim Pate. And I want to thank you for watching and help us restore hemp.
See you later, folks.